City of Newton's arborist, and I am responsible for the city's Division of Urban Forestry. And today we're going to be planting 5 trees along the Watertown Street as a community tree planting activity. These are our 5 trees over here. They're 5 tree lilacs, and we'll be using them to help regreen the city.
Why are you planting here?
Why am I planting here? So when we plant trees, there's a whole bunch of things that I need to take into account because we don't want them to be a liability or a problem or less of a problem later on. So we like, when possible, to stay 10 feet from driveway edges. We like to stay about 10-15 feet from a drain. Obviously, we try not to when we know we don't want to be on top of a sewer service or water service. However, water is not that big a deal, and we can be on top of water. So, keeping those parameters down, that basically rules out that as an ideal spot. If someone doesn't mind a tree right there, they'll put one there. And the reason for that is the sight coming out of their driveway, especially if the tree's middle size. When it's bigger, it's not as big an issue. When it's small, it's tough to see. So that kind of makes that a great spot. I got the drain there. I try not to get too close to those because eventually, if it's a bigger tree, the roots will start to pop it. So, and then I take into account what's on the property. If they have trees, we try to keep them off the tree. They have 2 trees right here, and then a little bit of it just feels right.
3 dogs right here. Or no, it's one.
Do you have any idea where the tree that didn't make it was?
Yeah. I guarantee you right where I'm digging.
Crushing.
Making digging easier. Making sure I'm not going to hit a big tree stump.
I'm going to go see if they left their photo.
Oh, that's what I forgot. By the textbook, proper tree planting, which I don't think I know anyone who does, they say dig the hole 3 times the size of the root ball. I am not digging from here over to there. But what you can do, once you dig the hole, you can use something like this to just loosen up the soil.
Sure.
And so even if the roots don't take up this whole space, the real goal here is to loosen up the existing soil to allow the roots to spread easily for it.
Yes, yes.
That's really what the key is. But you want to use this is actually good soil, because clearly they do something here, but this is great soil for, you're not needing to replace, you shouldn't be amending the soil, because the tree needs to acclimate itself to the site, unless it's all rock. And I mean rock.
Now, do you have to, is it more important to stake a tree that's bare-rooted than one that has that big weight on the bottom with all the
We're not staking these trees. I don't recommend tree staking.
You don't recommend it, okay.
Not unless you're on a highly vandalizable area like school grounds or outside of a bar.
Okay.
It's true.
Outside of a bar?
Yeah. A little bit 2 in the morning, when you're a little tipsy, then you take the stand
outside of bars?
Or really windy sites.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you're up on a knoll or on a hill and you're doing up like on a park or something.
Yep. Okay.
So
We don't. Is it harmful?
It can be harmful
Yes.
if you don't take them off.
Yeah.
Or you put them in improper and they girdle the tree.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it inhibits the tree's ability to naturally move and reduces its trunk development and its root development.
Now, can you buy bare-rooted trees as just a
Today is our first community tree planting that we've had in quite some time. My name is Mark Welch. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the city's arborist and tree warden. Next to me is Catherine Howard, chair of the Urban Tree Commission and president of the Newton Tree Conservancy, aka everything trees in the city, for representing the public. Poor Catherine here does it all. Today we're going to plant some trees, and I'm going to start with a demonstration on how to properly plant the trees we're using, and then we'll let you folks have an opportunity to do it, for those of you who wish, on the trees down the road. Catherine, is there anything you want to say first before I start talking about tree planters?
Welcome, and I hope that this is the first of many such things.
Great. So today I'll start with, we're planting 5 trees today. All 5 of them are what's known as tree lilac. We've chosen tree lilac because it's a good street tree. It tolerates the pressures of an urban environment such as this. And in addition to that, they stay relatively small and mature. So they won't grow into the overhead electric lines. They may start to hit the phone lines, which are the lowest ones, but they won't grow into the electric lines. Therefore, the utility companies won't cut the tops of the trees off. We could debate issues with utility pruning for a while, but the bottom line is we try to encourage a tree that does not require a problem for that. What we're also planting today, which may be unfamiliar to a few folks, is we're planting a tree known as bare root. Typically, we plant a tree called bald and burlap, or maybe more familiar, I shouldn't say typically, more familiar with bald and burlap, the soil ball around the roots. These trees are dug from the nursery by lifting them up and shaking off the soil. The benefits to this are, one, you watch me walk across the street. I can carry one tree by myself. Actually, I carried all 5 trees by myself into my truck today. So they're much lighter and easier to handle. They also, therefore, are a little bit more inexpensive to install on a professional level. Also, they come with more roots. When a bald tree is dug in a nursery, about 90% of the roots are lost in the process. In this process, roots are lost, but it's probably 40% lost, 50% lost. The one downside to the casual observer is that the trees are slightly smaller than normally people come to expect. Not by much, maybe a foot shorter and a ½ inch in diameter less. But from a tree's perspective, it will establish more quickly. It will grow to be the same size within the first couple of years, and no one would ever know because this is to be a long-term investment for 40 or 50 years down the road. So I started today by preparing my planting area by loosening up the soil. And we'll do this at the other holes. I'll loosen up the soil for you and help us dig. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start to dig my hole. I'm going to I'll go get the tree, show you the roots. And it's a relatively straightforward process. There's just a couple of key things. So I'm going to start just digging my hole here. One of the things that we did when we're planting here today, I want to put the soil just right on the road edge, if not just right next to it. But
Can I do this too?
yeah, sure, if you want to.
And we're doing the whole area, right? Not just where the...
We're gonna, yeah, we are pretty much where I've loosened up. We'll dig.
There are other shovels that everyone can dig in.
Yeah, so if a few folks want to grab a shovel on that side, and we won't dig all the way yet because I'll go grab the tree in a minute, but we'll get down about a foot or so. Does anybody have any guesses on how deep tree roots grow? Anyone want to guess?
Couple of feet at the most.
Yep, a couple of feet at the most. You're right. Most of the tree's roots are in the top 18 inches of soil at maturity. Most of the ones that they use for water and nutrients are in the top 6 inches of soil. So, therefore, even at its deepest, this hole at most will be digging 18 inches. But we'll probably end up with less.
So we want to go down how...
Well, for now we'll go down about the depth of the shovel blade for a moment, but all the way around, because until I know how deep the actual tree is. That'll be the next explanation. And we might have to loosen things up because we'll hit rocks. We don't recommend when planting a tree to amend the soil unless it's nothing but rock. The reason for that is the tree needs to get used to its environment. If you amend the soil with a lot of potting mix or humus or other things, this will act like a big planter. And the tree roots won't want to grow out, and it will ultimately girdle the tree. It won't grow as much.
Still going?
Yeah. You dig, I'll go get the tree.
Yeah.
Most of the trees that we purchase, because I purchased bare root, and bare root has fallen out of favor in the industry in the last 50 years. So this is kind of like what's new is really old. This is how we used to plant all trees for years. So most of my trees come from 2 nurseries near Buffalo, New York.
Oh, wow. That's a long way. It is a long
It is a long way, but they're substantially about half the price of what I pay around here. So.
What's the journey look like?
Before I started purchasing from the nursery, I looked at the nursery to make sure everything was all right, but they said great plant materials, so I don't go out and look at them before I buy them because I know they're going to give me good stuff. And there's shipping. Oh yeah, there's shipping. But these nurseries also sell to most of the local nurseries, so this is not outside of their normal day-to-day or normal operation. So
you take a burlap, a bald, and shake it and do it?
Well, if you were planting a bald, that's a great question. Because if you were planting a bald tree, I would recommend that you do something like that. But remember, the process for digging a bald tree doesn't take the roots that the bare root process does. What I would recommend is once you get the ball in the hole and you've removed the burlap and the wire cage, if there's a wire cage or the plastic pot, you take a rake and you loosen up the outside 4 or 5 inches of the ball so the edges of the roots are a little more loose. Okay. So then they're more encouraged to grow outward. Just like you probably would with a small potted perennial or something where all the roots are bound in, you want to rough it up or slice it before you put it in. So it's a similar process. So, this is what tree roots underground, more or less, look like before a soil ball is taken. And a soil ball, it would probably be about here. So a lot of these fine roots, the ones that are taking up all the water and nutrients, would be lost. You can't do this on all trees. There are some species of trees that do not tolerate this process. And they don't tolerate certain times of year planting. So this is not the magic bullet for every tree. It's a much better way for many trees. So the first thing we want to do when we plant a tree, whether it's bald or bare root, we want to see where the roots meet the base of the trunk. One of the worst things we can do in planting a tree is planting it too deep. You can get away with too shallow, but too deep is bad. And all it does, depending on how deep you plant it, either kills it pretty quick or it just stunts it. If you planted this tree here or here, I don't know that it would kill it, but it would stay this size for 20 years. Even in the best circumstances, tree lilacs are usually pretty hardy. I was out at a site the other day, I planted the trees 10 years ago, bald and burlap. They're only, they probably were this, a little bit bigger than this. They're only just a 1/4 inch bigger in diameter. The tops are bigger, but they just don't grow quick if you don't plant them in a good site. And that was a more urban area. So this part is actually pretty straightforward.
So show us where on this tree we would want it to.
On this tree, the tree roots, you can almost see where it was naturally growing in the nursery. And some trees are different, and some trees create a bit of a quandary for someone. This tree, and a lot of trees, are assembled when they're very young. That sounds strange. This piece of root here, this trunk, I'm sorry, it was not necessarily naturally growing on this set of roots. When it was very, very small, they grafted the top to a better root system. Probably a lilac, but they probably bred some lilac rootstock. Many, many plants, especially ornamentals, are done this way. And they grafted them together when it was yay big. So sometimes there's this knuckle, some don't have this. This is bad. So either way, you can almost see where it was growing in the field, the discoloration of the soil. And we can see these roots obviously were underground at the time. So about here is where it's going to fall. Yeah, this nub wouldn't have been above ground. So it's going to be above ground. So,
I have a position.
Well, that's another piece. We'll have to do a little digging here. Well, from a positioning standpoint, obviously we want to make sure it's up and down, parallel. In a street setting, it's nice to maybe take into consideration that we want the good side facing the home or the good side facing such and such. I think this tree is probably pretty good all around. But however, how I would probably it's aesthetic. But what I would probably do with this tree, simply for the reason, we'll say the more full side towards the home, I would probably put it a bit more like this. Also, just naturally in the nursery, this tree will be grown. We have a citizen pruner group in the city, made up of most of the folks that are here. But for those of you who don't know, we have a citizen pruner group. In a couple of years, we'll come back to this tree and start pruning it properly so it grows nice. But one of the things we try to encourage is not branches growing out into traffic in a busy location like this. This tree from the nursery naturally has a couple of branches not on this side. There's a few more lower here. Might as well start with that on this side. So this tree is young. It will definitely need pruning. For those of our citizen pruners, we will see that there are potentially some competing branches that need to be cut back. These are fine for the first next couple of 3 years.
You don't want to burn the plant.
Yeah, we don't. When I'm all done, the only thing that I'm probably going to prune is our broken branch here, just because it doesn't look good. And then is that?
Well, this
One is
has
broken here.
got a problem on the bottom of this.
Yeah, and I would believe it or not, I would leave
Leave
it right
it,
now
yeah.
because what we want to do.
That is going to
Yeah.
be a problem.
We'll get because inevitably I'm going to bump into it again probably,
Yeah.
and that's up a branch. And this is broken here. Inevitably, what we want to do because we're planting, the tree is stressed, we want to keep all the green we can keep on the tree, and so it produces new roots and food for its tree. So our roots are pretty much almost as they fall. There's no need to tuck them in. The soil will start to bring it down. We want to check our depth. The top of our hole is here. And I was saying we would want to plant, doesn't usually work out this well, right about here. This is about where our hole is falling. I might want to, I think I'm going to want to, believe it or not, Jack, if you could lift up the tree just a little. Just straight up. I just want to get a couple of shovel pulls right here. Okay, you can put it back. That's just because that's going to settle a little in the middle as we fill the tree. So I'm going to start shoveling in the hole. There's nothing, Julia.
Yes.
Do you mind if we could, is that water on? Do you know? Is the water on?
I think they turned it on. I think
Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw in a couple of shovelfuls.
Just try to avoid the rocks.
Should I do something?
Big ones.
Should I turn it on?
Big ones are going into
What I'm doing is we're going to fill up the whole part, a good part of the way till I cover the roots. And then we're going to fill up the hole with the water. This isn't another way you can do this too if we didn't have water available. Well, we do. So we'll take advantage of it.
Do you ever soak water into the hole first, and then do you ever put water into the hole first, and then put the?
We don't need to put it in first because we're about to put it in now, so
Okay.
it doesn't matter. If someone could just hand me that hose. And it's on, you said? Yep. All right, well, I'm actually gonna take the nozzle off. Don't lose the nozzle.
It's not straight.
Well, we're all right. We'll get the tree straight. I just want to get the air pockets out, but
Somebody asked about stone.
Oh, yeah.
Do we put the stones back in, or do we?
as long as I would say most the bigger ones you can leave out, but it's not a big deal. They're going to create the smaller stones like this create air pockets in the soil that help the tree. We could use a little more water.
Yeah, keep you busy.
We have all these helpers.
Now, how high will it get in relation to the power lines?
A tree lilac, well, they're going to get into these lower couple of wires. They're phone and cable. A tree lilac is similar in mature height is the dogwoods behind me, and just shy of
These right here.
just shy of the Japanese maple that's over here. Okay, so I'm taking out some of the air pockets in the soil by watering. You can also do this with a shovel, but if you want to tap in, you can start putting some more water back in the line.
Or dirt.
Or yeah, more. Look out.
You want to straighten the trunk a little bit.
Now we know that it's going the right way this way. Is anyone looking? Is it up and down
It looks good
in
to me.
comparison to the road?
Does this flower at the same time as any other?
A tree lilac flowers a little bit later. That's one of its benefits. It flowers late June. This tree is, I'm going to guess that it's about 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6. And this came out of Buffalo, or near Buffalo, New York.
You can look at
Yep. Like a refrigerator truck.
Yeah, you're just a little
I've
low.
seen them.
We know it came from Buffalo.
And I talked about the bare root, and a couple folks have asked me, well, I buy them from Buffalo. And ultimately, it's one of the reasons is that this method of planting really fell out of favor in the industry because of a couple of reasons that really boil down to cost and labor cost, not mechanical cost. It's pretty cheap to ball a tree with a machine. And a few of the nurseries still do it. They seem it's easier in places like a Buffalo, New York, because they have a very, very rocky and sandy soil.
I would say that there's too much dirt in there.
Well, we're on sun, so we're good.
Why is this more costly? Why is this more costly?
No, I'm speculating years ago. That's why they didn't sell out of favor in the industry. They dig it. Well, they do dig it by machine now, but back then it was they went from hand digging all trees to using the hand machine. All right, we're gonna hold on for a second. We're gonna do a couple of things first. We're gonna use a shovel.
Is it is it vertical enough?
It's a little bit this way. We'll have time. One of the things we can do if we don't have water, but I also recommend it even with especially the ball tree, is you do a little bit of this. A shovel, nothing hard. We don't want to bang the roots too much. Just loosening up the soil as we put it in, all the way around.
So is that getting rid of air pockets?
It helps with the air pockets, but it also just kind of shakes, because as you saw the roots here, they do need the soil kind of.
With air pocket.
Well, if there's roots where the air pockets are, it'll dry out the roots. We want little air pockets in the area of microns, not in inches.
It's kind of like watching Cabot stack ice cream.
Now we're talking. Okay, so Jack, if you could let go of it, I want to make sure it's kind of settled. Everyone wants to settle. We'll do one more good soaking on this tree, and we'll consider it.
So you wouldn't stamp down?
You got a water.
We don't recommend that you stamp on it because you're going to crush the roots with your weight. But the water will take out. We give it a really good soaking now. It's going to compact the soil a little. It's going to take out the water pockets. This tree is going to be a little bit wiggly for a little while. Oh. Come on. Maybe even less depending on what happens weather-wise. If this tree ultimately does start to lean, then yeah.
They win.
Yeah, keep going. The city has not been able to fund planting in a number of years.
Oh, okay.
We've been able to do tree planting through some funds that come from an ordinance within the city. So the last several years we've been able to plant between 200 and 300 a year. However, that's not an annual source of money. That's probably good, Jack. Yeah, it's alright.
Oh, is it a Norway maple?
Yeah, it'll be alright.
It's probably Norway maple.
Gotta go somewhere.
Right up against my foundation.
If it's a Norway maple, it's they're the ones that put out. What kind of a tree is it?
This? I'm not sure. Actually.
What type of a tree is it?
This is a tree lilac.
Lilac tree, right?
It's a little bit different than, it's not purple flowers. It's white and it flowers much more later in the season. Alright, so we planted a tree. Couple of last points about the tree. Just a couple of other things about the tree today. One, we recommend that you put mulch or wood chips down. Just in the reality of what I have, I couldn't fit wood chips for all the trees. We're going to come back on the city side sometime this week. I'll come back. I go pick up truck and put wood chips down.
Now why?
Yes.
But we do not pile them up around.
We do not pile them up around the tree. When we put in the wood chips or bark mulch, but I like wood chips because it decomposes and helps the tree better. It's not quite as aesthetically pleasing, but it's still wood chips. We put about 2 to 3 inch layer of wood chips, And I'm going to pretty much take up this space. It helps moderate soil temperature, moderate soil moisture, and it also will somewhat keep weeds down. Weeds grow pretty early.
Why don't you pile them up in a cone?
We do not pile up wood chips or mulch a foot up on the actual trunk itself because it harbors moisture and insects and can potentially damage the tree. So, before we leave here today, we've watered the tree. This tree has been sufficiently watered for this week. When you water a tree wants 10 to 15 gallons of water a week, a new tree of this size. We recommend that it only be watered once a week. If you water it a little bit more infrequently, it encourages the roots to stay at the top of the surface where it dries out, heats up, and doesn't do as well. So we encourage soaking it. If you don't, I'm going to be putting, and I'll explain this in a second, a water irrigation bag called, this brand is called a gator bag. If we want to water a tree without a gator bag, it's simply turning on the hose at a trickle, letting it sit there, depending on the trickle, a half hour, until you start to see it puddling up once a week. If we have a good rainfall during the week, we don't need to water it. If it's hot July, August, repeated heat, then I recommend 20 gallons of water a week, twice. Like 10 gallons 2 times in 1 week if it goes through one of those drought periods in the hot summer days. A little extra water on top of that won't hurt, but too much water, 10 gallons a day, watering every day, will hurt. It'll rot, it'll create a root rotting scenario. So I'm using this tree gator bag, and this helps you properly water a tree.
So if you drip, I mean, you know, it's hard to evaluate a gallon or
right,
two
it is.
Coming out of the hose.
So if it's just dripping out, turn it on before you sit down for dinner, and when you get out of dinner, turn it off. Or keep an eye on about a half hour, Joe. About a half hour. Half hour.
How long will usually dinner?
Depends on your dinner. It's me, mine's like 10 minutes long, so it'd be longer. So I don't sit long, I don't ever sit down.
You don't want to make a...
Do the sort of...
So yeah, so what I'm going to explain here is that I'm going to put this back.
You sometimes make a ring of donut around the tree.
We can make a ring around the tree, but the ring around the tree is if we're tree whenever I guess the best way to